happy to take part, so go ahead, whenever you're ready.
So, your name is J.B. Beverley and the Wayward Drifters?
Yes.
Where did the Wayward Drifters come from?
I actually named the band after a song I wrote called The Wayward Drifter when I was about 20 years old or so. And it was a very personal song, it meant a lot to me. And when I finally started playing my music out publicly, I needed something to call my band, so it became J.B. Beverley and the Wayward Drifters.
So, in the band, what do you play?
I sing and play guitar.
And what do the other members do?
Dan Mazer, his nickname is Banjo Dan, plays the banjo and the dobro and the mandolin and sings backups. And then we have a guy that plays, you know, the big stand-up basses, like a jazz bass. My buddy Johnny Ray Carroll plays the stand-up bass like slap style, like rockabilly style. You know, so it's got a real percussive sound to it. So we're normally a three-piece. Sometimes we have a fiddle player or an electric guitar player sit in with us, you know, once in a while a drummer, but mainly it's just the three of us. And with the slap on the upright bass, it makes that click pop, so you don't really need a drum. So we can get our equipment around without having to load too much stuff.
What are the differences between the genres of music you listened to growing up and now?
I really haven't changed that much. When I was a kid, I really liked, my family, there's musicians in both sides of my family. My mom was a singer until she was pregnant with me, and I oftentimes joke with her that I chose to pursue music and a career in music because I stole hers away from her. And it's one of those things where I grew up listening to a lot of old folk music, blues music, country music, bluegrass music, jazz, early rock and roll. I love Chuck Berry and Elvis and, you know, a lot of the older stuff. And then when I got to be about 12 or 13, I fell in love with, you know, like punk rock and heavy metal and, you know, all kinds of like hard rock and roll. And by the time I was in my early 20s, it had all come full circle. I mean, I still listen to it. I even have a rock and roll band called the Little White Pills, and we play obnoxious kind of pop rock stuff. But as I've gotten older, I think it's evolved more into, you know, the roots music, you know, this culture. It's like when you look back at the history of our country, you're going to see the importance that the blues and country and jazz and bluegrass and all the roots-based music, you know, the importance of that and the role it's had in being able to chronicle and document our culture, you know. And so, and rock and roll has its place too. It's just different. So I enjoy the duality.
Do you prefer to stay within the area or go on tour?
I tour all the time. I play anywhere from 180 to 225 days a year. I've played every state in the country except Alaska, Hawaii, and Maine. And I've been to Europe twice, getting ready to go back in March. So it's a full-time job for me.
What is your favorite thing about having it as a full-time job?
That's a good question. Probably the connection to the people. I like being able to go places and know that songs that I wrote, you know, whether it was a fun or happy moment that inspired the song, or whether it was something sad or something that made me angry, I like knowing that it has an effect on people and that they hear it and they go, you know, all right, man, I understand that. And when they feel the need to tell me that, it's even better because then I know I've made the connection. You know, so that's probably my favorite part about it. I used to think that it was seeing the country, but I've seen everything so many times that nothing's new for me anymore on that end. So at this point, it's got to be more of the big picture connection with the people.
Do you write the lyrics for the band?
I do. I write the music and the words.
So, is there any band connections or band connections with your lyrics? Does that make sense?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, who are your musical inspirations?
Oh, well, there's a lot. If you want to look more at this style of music, you know, on the country side, Hank Williams Sr. was a huge inspiration on me. I even got him tattooed on my arm. Chuck Berry on the rock and roll side, you know, I like, you know, back to the country, I like Johnny Cash, Jimmy Rogers. You know, you ever heard Jimmy Rogers, the singing brakeman?
I think I've heard him sometimes.
But, you know, he's really old school. It's like, well, I like a lot of the older stuff, and so I draw a lot of it, like I was telling you before, a lot of inspiration from the culture and the oral tradition. You know, if you hear, like, you know, you look at the history of our country, and there's very distinct like if you wanted to, I'll put it like this, if you wanted to learn a little bit more about the history of, let's say, coal mining in this country, there's a whole subgenre of songs about coal mining and written from the miner's perspective or from the perspective of the people in these towns. And as a listener, it's right up there with reading a book. You know, you're getting a first-hand account of a lifestyle. So I tend to gravitate toward that end of things. I get inspired by, you know, travel and you know, and the idea of, excuse me, of